Muy buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por continuar en todas las actividades programadas para el segundo Congreso Internacional de Logística. El día de hoy nos va a acompañar la doctora Úrsula, que va a ser presentada por la profesora Paloma, y nos dará el primer ingreso la ingeniera Luz Marina. Ingeniera Luz Marina, bienvenida.
Muy buenas tardes para todos. Continuamos con ya prácticamente el Congreso en su última fase. Tenemos una gran conferencia de cierre del Congreso con nuestra doctora Úrsula desde Brasil. El día de hoy para nosotros es muy importante también compartir con otro país hermano como Brasil el día de hoy. Iniciamos con España, trabajamos con diversidad de países como Estados Unidos, México y cerramos con Brasil. Entonces, el día de hoy de verdad para nosotros es muy importante todo este trabajo realizado de manera conjunta. Bienvenida. Y entonces a continuación con la profe Paloma nos va a ayudar con todo el liderazgo, moderación de esta gran conferencia de cierre y adicionalmente pues a los que se unan al canal de YouTube, los esperamos en el cierre del Congreso y las premiaciones. Muchas gracias.
Bien, muchas gracias a ustedes.
Profesora Paloma, bienvenida. Estás frente a la profesora Úrsula y varios espectadores. Así que bienvenida, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, buenas tardes para todos nuevamente. Es un gusto para mí presentar a la doctora Úrsula Maruyama, con quien he tenido la fortuna de trabajar ya hace varios años. Úrsula pues tiene una hoja de vida intachable, adicionalmente pues ha tenido varias pasantías a nivel mundial en diferentes tipos de entornos. Ella como tal acabó su doctorado en Ciencias de la Información. En este momento también está trabajando con todo lo que es parte de innovación en el ministerio en Brasil. Trabaja todo el tema de sostenibilidad y ahorita pues les va a hablar un poco sobre todo lo que es el tema ambiental. Es una de las líderes en Brasil y también a nivel mundial de todo lo que es la parte del pacto climático. Entonces, conoce temas relacionados sobre producción, sobre calidad, sobre todo lo que está también relacionado hacia mejoramiento de procesos y parte como tal ambiental. Entonces su doctorado como tal, la investigación la realizó sobre un tema que es el antropoceno y sobre la sostenibilidad ambiental. Entonces, pues no tengo más palabras para darle las gracias a Úrsula. Bienvenida nuevamente y es un gusto que puedas estarnos acá acompañando. Te doy la palabra. Bienvenida nuevamente.
Buenas noches desde Brasil. Quisiera agradecer a la profesora ingeniera Luz Marina Patiño Nieto por la invitación y también al profesor Ernesto Mendieta y su equipo y la profesora Paloma Martínez por su apoyo. Gracias también a los organizadores, Corporación Universitaria Unitec, los Libertadores Fundación Universitaria, Universidad Nacional Abierta y a Distancia, Universidad de La Sabana, Universidad San Tomás, Universidad Central, and Universidad Nacional Pedro Henriques Ureña. So it's a pleasure for me being here with you, Paloma, my dear friend. And I would like to start my presentation in English. I will try to speak and read despacio so everybody can follow us, okay? So let's start it. Welcome back to the final day of this conference, and thank you again for taking part of this event. This is the session where I'm going to give you the short-form version of the Climate Reality Project slideshow. We'll call it Truth in 10. And since this is a global conference, all of the examples are taken from all around the world. In 2006, Nobel laureate and former US Vice President Al Gore got the world talking about climate change with the Academy Award-winning film An Inconvenient Truth. It was just the beginning of a climate revolution. Later that year, he founded what would become the Climate Reality Project to move the conversation forward and turn awareness into action all across the earth. Today, as Climate Reality, we are a diverse group of passionate individuals who've become together to solve the greatest challenge of our time. We are activists, cultural leaders, organizers, scientists, and storytellers committed to building a sustainable future together. So this is the famous blue marble image that shows our Earth from space and reminds us that we all share the same home. What makes the photograph so unique and powerful is that it captures the complete circle of the Earth, help us see the big picture of our planet and our lives on it. It was the first time that Apollo mission made it possible to capture almost the entire southern polar ice cap. And after all the debate about the climate crisis, there are only three questions remaining. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? So let's take them one by one. Must we change? Yes, because we are using this thin shell at atmosphere surrounding our planet as an open sewer, and we are spilling all the man-made global warming pollution into it. The natural greenhouse gas layer is good for us, and the sun's rays comes through the air and warm up the earth, and then as the heat energy is absorbed, the infrared radiation brings a lot of the heat back out, and some of it is trapped by the natural greenhouse gas layer, and that's a good thing. Nearly half of the solar energy that reaches the top of the Earth's atmosphere is absorbed by the planet's surface. The average solar radiation striking the top of the atmosphere is 340 watts per square meter. About 29% is reflected back into the space, and about 23% is absorbed by the atmosphere. About 48% is absorbed by the Earth's surface. But the problem is getting thicker, and more of the outgoing infrared radiation is trapped. This process of trapping and radiating heat keeps the Earth's temperature stable. The process raised the surface temperature to about 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit on average. This is more than 30 degrees Celsius warmer than the surface temperatures would be if the Earth didn't have an atmosphere. And today, higher concentrations of greenhouse effects trap about 3 watts of incoming solar energy per square meter of the Earth's surface. While the amount of extra heat energy seems small on paper, it has a larger effect over the entire planet, and the result is global warming. By the end of 2018, the warming influence of greenhouse gases had risen 43% above the 1990 baseline. So it's getting thicker because we are spewing 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the thin shell of atmosphere every 24 hours, as it were an open sewer. So it comes from lots of different sources. It comes from landfills, from transportation, burning forest and cropland, animal agriculture, and the permafrost is thawing, and that's playing a role now. But the biggest source by far is our reliance on fossil fuels, and since World War II, that's been going up dramatically. As a result, the temperatures are going up very fast. It's unmistakably clear, and the scientists are telling us that the year already has more than 70% chance of being the hottest year ever measured with instruments. So 19 of the 20 hottest years have been since 2001, and the 5 hottest have been the last 5 years. We are seeing the heat go up all over the world, and Miami just had its hottest week ever measured in 2020 summer. As you can see, Australia with heat waves during the winter in January 2020. In Ghana, look at Canberra, Australian capital. They just had all-time high temperature record in January 2020. And Ghana is one of the countries in Africa setting its all-time temperature record, 111 Fahrenheit degrees, average 44 Celsius degrees. So Europe had the hottest year ever last year, and all of these countries have set all-time records. In Siberia, Russia, above the Arctic Circle, it went above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, the hottest temperature ever measured north of the Arctic Circle. And in the world as a whole, it's useful to remember that 93% of all this heat goes to the oceans, and this disrupts the water cycle. So we are seeing ocean temperatures also hit a new record last year, and almost certainly again this year. This makes the ocean-based storms stronger. It also magnifies the amount of water vapor coming off the oceans into the sky. And as the world gets warmer, the extra heat increases. Evaporation intensifies the water cycle, increasing the likelihood of ferocity of downpours. Water molecules are constantly changing from one state to the next, and the movement of these water molecules around the world is the water cycle. The transition from liquid to gas is known as evaporation, and from gas to liquid, condensation, which in the atmospheres creates clouds and falls as precipitations, rain and snow, for instance. And the amount of evaporative water the air can hold is affected by how warmer the air is. So for each 1 degree Celsius of warmer, the air holding capacity for water vapor goes up by almost 7%. With more water vapor in the air, there is the more water available to precipitate an extreme single event downpours. So when all of the water vapor comes over the land, the precipitation events increase, and when it rushes back to the sea, the floods and the mudslides increase. Heavy downpours are instances when the amount of rain or snow exceeds what is normal, which varies by location and season, and these events are on the rise with climate change. In the US, extreme downpours are now happening 30% more than in 1948, taking place every 9 months rather than in every 12 months. So these downpours are also 10% more intense on average nationwide. Projections show downpour will become more frequent and intense as temperatures continue to rise. So in the area between India and Bangladesh, actually both countries were hit by this super cyclone, and the people in the river delta, they were devastated. There is a lot of out immigration from those low-lying areas. And when they are rescued during the pandemic, is an extra challenge. We are also seeing the same pattern all over the world. As Pope Francis reminded the world powerfully, the poor are the ones most affected, and communities of color are most affected. So in the United States, the Poor People's Campaign is campaigning against ecological devastation, along with racism and poverty and the other issues they've identified. But back to these rain bombs. You can see all over the world, these massive precipitation events are increasing each year. And you are seeing rainfall that breaks all records. This was US Vice President Al Gore's home state a few months ago during a severe flooding period. And this was how people were dealing with in Westville, New Jersey in 2019 summer. By the way, minority neighborhoods and communities are far more affected. This was an image last year in New Orleans. And if you look at the 10 counties most affected by flooding in the United States, 81% of the population is minority on average. So that's a pattern holding around the world. Farmers were hurt last year in the prime farmland of the Midwest. 20 million acres couldn't be farmed because of the massive downpours. And this photo shows a tractor pumping water from a flooded field near Orchard, Antelope County, Nebraska in May 2019. US 2019 spring flooding caused $20 billion in damage, including $6.4 billion in federal crop insurance payouts. So globally, these rain bombs are happening 4 times more frequently than they were just 40 years ago. And here was just a few months ago in India and Nepal. 4 million people were displaced by the flooding and the mudslides. Similar event in Guangdong province in China with more than 700,000 people affected. And again, this picture was taken in Kenya in April this year, where more than 100,000 families were displaced. The same extra heat that caused the rain bombs and floods also caused the droughts by sucking the moisture out the topsoil. So the droughts take place more quickly. The groundwater is used up faster. And this is Europe in 2020, this summer, showing dangerously low levels of groundwater there. And the drought this year in Europe, Czech Republic has the worst drought in 500 years. Parts of Poland, the worst in 100 years. And this is Chennai in India. It's the 6th largest city. Last year, they almost completely ran out of water. So, when we have high temperatures and drought, we also have more fires. And then, fires have been devastating. This is a huge fire spread months ago in Arizona. And as you can see, in California last fall, they had devastating fires. As in Pantanal in Brazil as well. So the same thing was true in Australia at the turn of the year. As consequence of this, the smoke circled the globe. And of course, in the Amazon forest, these man-set fires are devastating as well. So last year in southern Greece, firefighters were trying to extinguish a wildfire burning near the village of Makrimali, island in Evia. The Prime Minister of Greece pointed out to climate change. So checking the graph of worldwide extreme weather catastrophe by number of events between 1980 and 2019, the insurance companies are pointing to all these climate-related disasters and tell us that this is completely unsustainable. So in 2018, about 850 natural catastrophes were recorded around the world, with the overall losses totaling $160 billion, of which roughly a half of it was insured. In 2019, about 120 natural disasters were registered around the world, with overall losses totaling $150 billion, with just 1/3 insured. So the heat is also melting in the ice in Greenland. This glacier turned into water. NASA's estimate of the ice loss in Greenland show us that it's 4 times faster than they had originally thought. Researchers conclude that even if the strictest global emissions standards are met, sea levels would still rise from 0.7 to 1.2 meters within the next 2 centuries. Dozens of countries are exposed to the risk of coastal flooding caused by sea level rise. So the same thing is true in Antarctica, where the ice melting has accelerated quite dramatically, and this massive amount of ice in those two regions melts, sea levels goes up. And the top 10 cities by population affected by the sea level, you see a lot of them in South Asia. The top 10 by assets at risks, number 1 is Miami, Florida, United States. And sea level rise is the reason why this octopus showed up in a parking garage in Miami. So in New York and Newark, $129 billion of real estate assets are at risk, lying in the flood zones. But the people most at risk are in these low-lying Pacific Island nations, and in some places, they are already having to move. So nearly 1/3 of the world's populations, or 2.4 billion people, live within 100 kilometers of a coastline, further emphasizing the vulnerabilities associated with increased sea level rise. So it's also a national security issue. It creates problems for food and water and health. And in refugees, as you can see, we saw the Syrian drought. This has destabilized the political equilibrium in parts of Europe. As Professor Hugh Montgomery says, it's also a health crisis, a climate, a medical emergency caused by the climate crisis all over the world. Many consequences can be stated, such as tropical diseases are moving toward the poles, and air travel is one of the reasons why. But the conditions are changing due to climate crisis, where the disease can take root and become endemic. So, and as we see more destructions of previously wild lands, we are seeing more disease appear because there are millions of viruses in the areas where people have not lived very much in the past. So we give 5 new diseases every year, including the COVID-19 pandemic now. So air pollution kills 9 million people a year, and the same burning of fossil fuels that creates the global warming pollution also creates the particulates that cause more lung disease and heart disease. So it also makes people more vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic all over the world. More air pollution, a higher death rate from COVID-19. And again, we see this pattern show up worse among minority populations and poor populations. Black Americans are dying at a rate more than twice as high as white Americans from COVID-19. Many reasons, but the climate crisis is one of the principal ones. And not just people are affected. We are in danger of losing half of all living species on this earth in this century. So, when you add up all these costs, we haven't even talking about the ocean acidifications or infrastructure, or some of these others. I will add one more. It's the number of threats to the global economy. 4th year in a row, it's been designated as such. So, do we have to change? Yes, we do. And what about the second questions? Can we change? Well, luckily the answer to this question is yes, too, because we have the solutions at hand. And just look at this. 20 years ago, the best projection for wind energy were that by the year 2010, and we could reach 30 gigawatts of wind energy. Well, we beat the mark in 2010, and we've kept going. Recently, we beat it by 22 times over. Wind and solar are the cheapest sources of electricity generations for people across more than two-thirds of the world as in 2019. So with solar energy, it's even more dramatic. The best estimates 18 years ago were that the amount of solar energy we could install each year might reach 1 gigawatt per year by 2010. Well, we'll beat the mark when 2010 arrived by 70 times over. And last year, we beat the mark by 121 times over. So this exponential curve is even steeper than the one for the wind and rising even faster. Because of the cost of renewable energy continues to come down dramatically. And just look at one example in Chile. Look at all of the solar farms that they have built and are approved for the construction to begin. This is a breakout scenario that we are seeing at quite a few regions around the world. And it's a cause for tremendous hope. We are seeing a very rapid transition. And we are not going to run all of it because we get as much energy from the sun in 1 hour that would supply for all electricity in the world needs for a full year. And it can be enhanced further with storage capacity. The projections forward show that this is a new $1 trillion industry, which is going to make solar and wind energy even more useful. In transportation, we've seen the beginnings of a massive shift to electric vehicles, which can cut the global warming pollution there. And this is another positive sign. So can we change? Yes, we can change. So the final question, the most important one is, will we change? Well, that's partly up to us, but we've got the Paris Agreement, and don't shortchange the Paris Agreement. Don't be fooled by the fact that the current president of the United States wants to withdraw. The US can withdraw until the day after this November's elections. So were to be a new president, and the new president could give 30 days notice, and the US is right back to the agreement, hopefully. The market is also changing to help us in this journey. So this blue line is the stock market going up. But the red line is the energy sector, the fossil fuel sector. They're bad investments now. And that the word is getting out, we are seeing a huge shift of assets toward the sustainability revolution. So in the US, they already see almost half of their states with more than half of their people moving faster to the Paris Agreement requires. So we are seeing cities moving their approach toward US climate alliance as well. And we are seeing business move. More than 240 global companies have pledged to go 100% renewable, and more companies are adding their names and pledge to this list every single day. And the rising young generation, the greater generation, they are leading the way, and they are demanding a better world as they have a right to do. So join those who are using their voices, using their votes, and using their choice to fight for their future, their community, and their world. Use your voice, your vote, your choices in the marketplace and elsewhere, like your word depends on it. Speak truth to power. because actually our world depends on it. But so what else we can do? Which lessons can we bring into South America reality? This multiple Brazilian case study in our public higher education institutions show us the way. All in all that had been said in this presentation, we consume 50% more than the planet is capable of replacing, and we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 40% so that the planet's temperature does not rise by more than 2 degrees Celsius, a limit indicated by scientists to prevent major climate catastrophes. So the sustainability debate has already been established in a sustainable society. And given the seriousness of environmental problems with all the associated risks, one question arises. How can higher education institutions, such ours, contribute to addressing issues raised by climate change? A Rede Federal de Educação Profissional, Científica e Tecnológica makes the difference. So, Rede Federal de Educação Profissional, Científica e Tecnológica, it's a public higher education Brazilian institution network from technical education to doctoral degrees with more than 1 million enrolled students in all 27 Brazilian states and federal districts. It constitutes a milestone in the expansion, interiorization, and diversifications of professional and technological educations in the country. Recognized for the quality of the education offered, diversity of courses, and its relevant work with local development, it has the best that each region offers in terms of work, culture, and leisure. From north to south, some examples will be highlighted as good practice and ideas to implement in our own institution. As examples from the north, the Great Amazon region comprises states such as Acre and Amapá. There, we find IFAC, Ecological Tourism course, helping in training local communities toward local development in environmental awareness. Besides, by ingenious minds, IFAP, Instituto Federal do Amapá, students and their advisors develop cheaper solutions to maintain science alive in their scarce budget. Also, in the Northeast Alagoas, a new product that can be used as a source of a complementation and food supplementation is in flours traditionally used in the bakery industry, which have a low quantity of nutrients. So, Instituto Federal de Alagoas, pine cone flour, propose solutions to minimize waste in the pine cone production chain, which revolves around 30%. Besides, IFOL also contributes to consolidate the bamboo supply chain and production in Alagoas states. Another Northeast states, Maranhão and Pernambuco. Instituto Federal do Maranhão students found a viable solution for using the core seed discarded by the açaí vendors in the city. They tested the use of açaí in the place of firewood as a source of energy in burning for ceramic bricks production. In another example for Instituto Federal do Sertão Pernambucano in the rural zone is the Ecological Trail, and its main objective is environmental education through awareness of Caatinga flora sustainable use. In Midwest, Goiás, IFG photovoltaic panels were installed on the tree, which captures sunlight, transformed it into electrical energy. IFG Energy Efficiency Project foresees the installations of photovoltaic plants in its campuses, actions in lighting systems, solar water heating, electricity generation through photovoltaic systems, monitoring, and energy management. Internationally known as the wonderful city, Rio de Janeiro, my hometown, has suffered several man-made interventions. And the project, Less Plastic is More, by Cefet RJ, students collect solid waste throughout Carioca beaches. So they then, supported by chemistry professors Valeria and Gisele, they developed their own research over these components. Another example is Cefet RJ de SAI environmental management initiatives, such as a collections of disposable writing material and PET bottle caps. Besides, also research projects such as sustainable mobile phone charger, using solar panel capturing energy in USB ports, while in the Minas Gerais state develops low environmental impact products by incorporating waste and tailings into new construction materials. Instituto Federal Fluminense and Cefet RJ also foster solar boat competition projects. In the south of Brazil, also known for its beautiful beaches, the state of Santa Catarina also includes projects for the countryside. So, Instituto Federal Catarinense fertilizer patent from waste productions of gravel and pig excrement. This product promotes the preservation of the environment, not only by offering an alternative to chemical fertilizers, but also for the usage of compost residues difficult to treat or discard. The Wind Energy Technology Center is a gain for the training of technicians and graduates in wind energy at the Federal Institute of Rio Grande do Norte in the northeast of Brazil. So the objective is to offer technical and postgraduate specialization to those interested in working in the field of wind energy. Rio Grande do Norte is the Brazilian state with the largest wind farm in the country, 146 plants. Last but not least, finally, the If Solar project that gave rise to the Energy If program, considered as the one of the most consistent initiatives towards the energy efficiency of the Rede Federal, contributing to the consolidations of a culture focused on environmental sustainability. Through the photovoltaic effect, solar cells directly convert the energy of the electricity in a static, silent, no-polluting, and renewable way. Installed in 82 campuses, each solar plant system generates an average of 104 megawatts per year, with $1.5 million savings a year in avoiding 30,600 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions, CO2, into the atmosphere per year each solar plant. It is quite a contribution, isn't it? So now, would like to join us? Be the positive change. Join us to bring positive contributions to the world. Yes, we can do it. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Úrsula, muchas gracias. Preguntas, inquietudes que tengan. Pueden escribir, por favor, por el chat. Muy interesante la presentación, Úrsula, como siempre. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Fabian. Exactly, Olga. The reality hurts, but we should try, and we have like all the skills and instruments to do it right now.
¿Preguntas?
Well, transportation is not exactly my specialty, in my specialization, but I have some friends who studied something, things like that. And as we said before, the turning point is just like going through, passing by this fossil fuels codependency. So it's related to transporte de carga. It's better to say the word in Portuguese than in English.
Bien, ¿alguna otra pregunta, dudas?
Olga, I do not have here, but if you would like to, you can contact Professor Paloma. And I do have people from the Climate Reality Project all around the world, including Colombia. So I can ask them to contact you and then giving you this information, okay?
Gracias, Úrsula. Que si tenías, if you have some data about solar energy in Colombia. I don't think so, no?
No, I just read the questions and I already answered. So
okay.
I don't have now this data, but I know people who have it, so I can like ask you to keep the bridge, and I can give you this contact information to provide this data.
Okay, thank you.
Huela?
Huella.
Yeah. Can you explain?
Yeah. Let me 1 second, please. Trace carbon footprint.
It's talking like the carbon dioxide emissions or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's somehow like the Chilean, I think the example that I just showed in the graph. So it's not like we don't have like only one answer, only one approach, but we need to do like several small approaches to beat this difficulty, especially on the carbon dioxide. So in Brazil, we use the energy if in the Rede Federal. So we transition our dependency on the energy from electrical to solar. So in our case, it's like this. In transportation, we see in a climate reality presentation, we are talking about like using electrical cars and other kinds of things to not depend on exactly on fossil fuels. There is a line of people who also says that it's good to thinking about our food and how we manage it. So trying to avoid eating a lot of meat and trying to have more healthier and organic life. So it's baby steps for the populations with huge steps from governments and big companies and corporations is going to make the difference. But there is not only one answer for this question.
Ujú.
Okay.
Thank you. Ujú. ¿Más preguntas? ¿Preguntas? Bueno, si no hay más preguntas, creo que vamos cerrando.
Hello, Úrsula.
Hello.
Paloma, si hay una, si se sacrifica la salud por la contaminación, ¿será? ¿Por la continuación de una normalidad o una continuación de
no
una
entendí.
normalidad que no ecológicamente es sostenible? ¿Cómo se puede ayudar a entender a los gobiernos en su guerra económica a realizar cambios en sus modelos? Si se sacrifica la salud por la continuación de una
No entendí.
normalidad que no es ecológicamente sostenible, ¿cómo se puede ayudar a entender a los gobiernos en su guerra económica a realizar cambios en sus modelos?
Well, first of all, as former U.S. Vice President Al Gore said, for the population, for us, for people, the first thing that we can do and we should do is think about our vote. So choosing wisely our presidents and our governments will help a lot of this. And also as consumers, we have the responsibility in buying food, buying things more wisely as well. So as the more we choose environmental friendly products, the more the companies are going to change their mind from the greenwashing approach for a more environmental responsible approach. And that's a challenge, but it's our commitment to do it. This is Professor Valeria, the Rio de Janeiro Beach chemistry professor. So she has like a great job up there, and she's doing her role. Well, Antonio, it's quite a thing, and as you can see, I don't know if you watch the news from Brazil and also from our president and all this dilemma with Europe and like support and foment the Amazonia question is also in issues for all of us, but again, it's not that simple. I'm a federal employee, so I work for the government as a professor, of course, but as a business person, because I graduated in business, I do understand that foreign affairs and also those kind of things, they are not just like daydreaming of environmentalists and so on. So that's why we are here in this conference, and we have like professor, researchers, scientists all over the world studying all this climate change impacts. So from my point of view, governments should take the approach of taking care of our forests and our vegetations and all the flora and fauna that we have. But it's not an easy thing. So I do know that it's not like a Pollyanna approach. We do have like several things to think when dealing in diplomatic and foreign relations. So it's not only a part of protect our forests. We need to protect inside as well. And at least, actually speaking, for now in Brazil, the most problem that we are facing, it's not in the foreign relations, it's inside with our corporations and people that don't respect the environment. Exactly, Paulina. Congratulations. And as you can see, I show the Chile as a benchmark for all of us in South America. Well, Alberto, this is also a polemic question and an issue. And as I stated before, all this climate reality project presentation was based on Vice President Al Gore point of view, as well as I also like to quote President Barack Obama, who also defend environmental approaches as well. But now United States has another president and they have another election in November. So it depends on the American people to use their vote to change this scenario as well. We are going to face our challenge in up to years in Brazil. Well, I think it's come to all of us to think about not only our daily routines, our errands, because we think, oh, I don't want to think about environment or another issues because it's not my problem. It's the government problem. It's the politicians' problem. But instead, it's everybody's problem. So when it says something and people don't stay at home with COVID-19 and we spread the disease, it's our responsibility as well. So I don't know what happens in your country, but in Brazil, we face a lot of things like that when we just say that someone else's responsibility instead of committing yourself to doing something. So now from these presentations, I would like that each one of us that is here right now thinking about and exchanging experience start to think not only about governments and what they should do, because there are a lot of activists, environmentalists, and people who are professional in doing this. So, but in our case, in academia, in universities, we should think what we can do in our classes, in our community. And it's more simple.
Thank you very much, Úrsula.
Welcome.
Realmente para nosotros fue importante tratar este tema dentro del Congreso para los asistentes porque sabemos que si no concientizamos desde esta temática, desde esta experticia, no vamos a poder incursionar en una sostenibilidad dentro de las cadenas productivas. Es un escenario de motivación, de concientización y de promover. Nosotros los ingenieros, los administradores y las demás profesiones que el día de hoy también nos han acompañado en este tipo de escenarios, queremos motivarlos a que por favor trabajemos de manera conjunta en pro también del cuidado de nuestro planeta, porque hace parte del proceso. Las cadenas productivas están diseñadas, generamos productos, procesos, servicios, pero no miramos realmente la sostenibilidad que tienen dentro de ella. Entonces, es un llamado a todos a hacer conciencia ciudadana y de responsabilidad social y ambiental. muchas gracias. Paloma, realiza el cierre, por favor, y nos vemos en la próxima plataforma para poder dar el cierre oficial del Congreso. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Namaste.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Úrsula, mil y mil gracias por tus palabras, por acompañarnos, por darnos también esas cifras, ¿no es cierto?, que nos permiten proyectarnos a un mejor futuro. Entonces, mil gracias nuevamente y te esperamos ver prontamente por Colombia, tu segundo hogar. Mil gracias. Una feliz noche. Claro. Muchas gracias. Chao, chao.
Chao.